I'm Scott Anthony. I am the author of Smoke, Confessions of a Cuban Cigar Smuggler, and I am Chattin with Staxx.
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Scott Anthony.
How you doing,
What's up?
Staxx? Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
It's been a while. I'm trying to get on. You must be busy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's good, though.
That's a good thing.
Definitely. In this business, it's huge, right?
I'm trying to keep myself busy.
Definitely. I see you're an author. You got a book called Smoke.
Yeah, Confessions of a Cuban Cigar Smuggler. My first book of several. I have 4 coming out this year total. And it's the first one I wrote, and I'll tell you, it's a scary thing because I'm not a writer. I'm officially now an author, but it's a whole different world.
It is, right? So
yeah, I saw some guy you had on recently that wrote a book. He had something to do with Ice-T. I never caught his name.
Big Kaz.
Oh, Big Cat. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of his best friends, Ice-T.
Yeah. I watched the episode. I didn't remember his name. Interesting character.
Yeah, I have a lot of interesting characters on my show.
Well, you're involved in MMA. MMA probably per capita has the most interesting characters out of any walk of life.
Well, MMA, the motorcycle community, different. I'm like got my hands in a lot of different things. Some people don't even know that I won this award and I'm in the Hall of Fame and the different things I do.
Do you know whose fault it is if they don't know?
Their own
fault. Man, that thing you should be so proud of it. It should be hanging in the back right behind you. And you always tell people, there is my induction into the MMA Hall of Fame because it's pretty cool.
It is. I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, man, but I'm up for the task, you know.
How long have you had a social media presence?
About 5 years.
What you just one day said, you know what? This is what I want to do.
I said I was watching other people do it and I was like, I can do that. And I was looking for something. I got sober. I was sober for a couple of years, and I was like, I need to do something with my life and like get something to change my course of life, you know?
I kind of we have faith and destiny, and we sometimes you feel this something inside of you telling you need to change. You got to go in a different direction.
I was going to church and things just changed for me dramatically.
Good. It's funny. My 23-year-old son, I asked him a few years ago, I said, who do you admire? Who's kind of a hero? And I was expecting him to say his father. And he said, Dan Baziliarian. And I looked at him, and then, I was young ones too, all the girls, the hot tubs, the fun. And then I said to my son, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? He said, I want to be a YouTuber, Dad. And I'm like, YouTuber? You're going to make a living doing that? You don't know, Dad. You don't know, but that's what I'm going to do. And now I've got like 10 times more followers than he does.
Now you're where he wanted to be, right?
And this is the funny thing. I didn't want him. I'm a very private guy. I grew up a criminal until I wasn't a criminal. But once it's you. It's so deep inside there that you can just contain it, but you can't erase it. So I was fine living in peace and anonymity, and then the book Smoke, because after I got out of the federal system and cleaned my life up, I said, no more. But there were no real opportunities out there in life. And I was grinding hard. I was giving kickboxing classes. I was training boxers and managing them, and that's, it's MMA world, boxing world. They're pretty, it's a lot of sharks swimming in that sea,
Definitely.
and you're elbowing to move forward and work. And one day, 2 boxes of Cuban cigars landed in my lap. It started with 2 boxes of Cuban cigars. I gave them to a friend back in Chicago. A week later, he said to me, "Hey, you have any more of those?" And I said, "You smoked them all already?" He said, "No, I sold them for $25 a piece."
So what? The real Cuban cigars? Like how? Tell me how this all
Real
started.
Cubans. I went to Cuba. I went to Cuba on a trip with the guys, and I don't know, 91, 92, 93, somewhere in there is when I went on the vacation trip, and I bought these 2 boxes of cigars out of pity. The guys came to pick up a bag that I had brought from their family, and they were dressed like 1970s, bell bottoms and wife beaters, like two-tone wife beaters, and I just felt bad. And they're like, "You want to buy a box of cigars?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, no, what am I going to do with cigars? But I'm looking at them. I go, "How much are they?" Like $25 a box, and I'm like, "Yeah, give me 2." And I was going to leave them in the hotel. When we were checking out, I left them on the table, and my friend said, "You're going to leave those?" I said, "Yeah, I don't smoke." He's like, "Are you stupid? You paid for them. You bought them. Take them." Okay, I threw them in my bag, got home, threw them in a closet, and then later gave one to a friend. And with that idea, it reignited my life.
So they
I,
let you
I
back in to the country, no problem with the cigars?
Oh no, that couldn't be further from the truth. No, we had to, first of all, we had to go through Mexico. So you couldn't get into Cuba at that time through the US. It was either Mexico or Canada. And since I was living in Mexico, Mexico was my option. I could either go Mexico City or Cancun, go into Cuba, and Cuba had a limit. You were not allowed to remove more than $1,000 in cigars per visit. So on one plane ticket, I could only bring out $1,000 in cigars, and 1 box of Cohibas could cost $1,000. So I used to bring guys with me. I'd get people, I'd pay for their trip, have them carrying suitcases, and I had customs agents helping me out, and I had people at the factories helping me out, make the invoices a little unlegible so that I could just sneak through my book. To my surprise, I was embarrassed in the beginning because I'd never written before. I barely made it through kindergarten, let alone to author status. And I wrote the book, and then I kind of closed my eyes and I threw it at an editor. And my friend John Romano, he's a sports writer. You might have heard of him. He writes for bodybuilding. He's got a podcast, and he's a writer. He's the only guy I know that's a writer. And I said, "Hey, John, you think you can edit this for me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll edit it for you." So he edited it 2 times, and we went back and forth, and I kind of got momentum. And then one night, my wife and I were sitting around, and I said, "I want you to read a couple of his paragraphs or chapters compared to mine, because it's sounding like his voice and not mine to me." She read it and said, "No way, you can't use his version. It doesn't sound like you." And that's when I started hunting for publishing companies, and I got a publisher, and they put professional editors on it, and we went back and forth, and the book took me about almost 4 years to completion.
It's not a easy process. It's not
Oh
like
no,
overnight. Some
no,
people
I've
think it
learned
is.
how to do it. So Stacks, I made a video last week. We haven't posted it yet because I've had a lot of people. It feels pretty cool because I'm inspiring people to the person who's not an author but has a lot of story to tell. They're like, "How did you do it, man? I want to write a book and I don't know where to start." And some people get offended because I told one guy, I said, "Look, you've got to do it on your own. If you are not famous, if you don't already have celebrity status, nobody's doing shit for you. But if you're a celebrity, they're tripping over themselves to get it done. Yeah, you know, Ice-T just has to have a dream that he wants to write a book, and there's 14 people going, hey, here's some upfront money, I'll write it for you. And if you're not a celebrity, you've got to figure out how to do it. You don't got to do it 100% right, but you've got to do most of the work. And then you bring it to a publisher slash, publication company that has writers and editors, and they help polish. I'm starting the edit of my 4th book. So Smoke was book number 1. Book number 2 is Street Raised, The Making of a Criminal. Book number 3 is Built for Crime, All or Nothing in Chicago Streets. And the 4th one, I was a fugitive for 5 years. I was on the run, deep into the gangster world, 5 years. That's my last book. I don't have a name for it yet. I'm still waiting for that bolt of lightning to hit me.
Because you knew you were on the run, right? You knew they wanted you.
Oh, yeah. I was a professional fugitive for 5 years. And here's the funny thing, Staxx, and sometimes I don't believe, I don't know if you're a religious person. I believe that God's hand has been on my shoulder more time than I can count. Now, maybe not God himself, maybe an angel, a spirit, but somebody sent from him. Because I just can't imagine that I slipped through so many cracks and stayed alive all on my own. Yeah, I knew I was pulled over in Georgia on the way back from South Florida, and had a trunk full of Colombian candy, and I had special suitcases with hidden compartments, and they had never been breached before. But these guys searched the car so many times. I just knew. I said, they're not giving up. They just had a feeling, because me and the guy who was in the car with me both gave conflicting stories. So they knew. And as soon as they found it, I was gone. I just took off running. They were shooting at me. And I was in the woods in Georgia for about 3 days.
You got away?
Oh, I got away. I have the newspaper clippings. So this is a really cool thing. Some friend of mine from the U.S. who's got he's got a Chicago gang site. I was the leader of a Chicago street gang when I was young. So I have you interviewed Mel Chancey yet?
He does selective interviews. He does the major ones. Obviously, we've seen. I spoke to Mel today.
Okay, yeah, because I want to meet Mel. My friend John Romano was gonna try and hook it up, and I can't remember another. Oh, I know from Chicago studios. Stanley Wozniak. He told me he was gonna hook me up. I gotta remind him. You know, Mel and I kind of have similar backgrounds. Chicago gang scene. So I was in a gang, and I did first interview. What happened is I wrote the book, and I thought, well, I'm going to write this cigar book because it's much more socially acceptable, and my conscience can live with everything in the cigar book. A lot different than the other years of my life before I matured, grew up. I'm not the same person anymore. It's long behind me. We'll clear that up before I go deeper. But I wrote Smoke, and my wife said to me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I said, "I don't know." And then I was interviewed. I went to Colombia to see Carlos Later, the old Pablo Escobar partner, and I was interviewed in Colombia by a very well-known journalist. And we spoke, and my 10-year-old daughter was me, and he put the camera down, and he covered it, turned it off, and he said, "Scott, I want to ask you something. Are you sure you're ready for this before you start this journey? Because once you get recognized and you get out there, there's no putting the top back on it." And I sat there for a moment. And I said, "I'm okay with it. I'm 62 years old. I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning. I can deal with it." If some people like have found out about my past, and they kind of look funny at me. I have I'm a martial arts instructor and have a big jujitsu center in my gym, and all the parents look up to me because I'm a role model. And then I'm worried when they say, "Hey, what's the name of your book? I want to buy it." And I'm like, oh, I don't know. You know, this is my kid's sensei.
Yeah, I know a guy like that unalive somebody, and he lived a crazy life, and he wants to tell his story. I've interviewed him. He has an amazing story. It would be pretty big interview, but
Right.
he's worried about what people think about him. So I put the interview on hold. I've been holding it for 3 years. I'm still waiting for him to say yes. Let's drop it.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because I have some guys from my past that few of them, their lives, not many, but a few of them, their lives are straightened out. But we have a lot of history and a lot of stories. And I've asked them for interviews and they keep saying no. Oh, you know, my wife works for the city. My son's at a Catholic university. All of these different reasons. And you know what I discovered, Stax? Nobody cares.
They
Nobody
don't.
gives a shit. What's in the past is in the past. It doesn't matter. And I heard this a few times in my life, and it's kind of a quote that people use. You know, the people with the most complicated past make the most interesting adults. So
Definitely do.
it is my so the book Cigar Smoke is about cigar smuggling. That's what it about. But it wasn't easy. I didn't fly in an airplane, land in Havana, have the red carpet rolled out with Fidel coming to greet me, have the guys load up my thousands of boxes of cigars and fly off into the sunset. It wasn't anything like that. It was true grit. That's what got me through it. But I had a dream. I'm going to build a life. I'm not, you know, here's the funny thing. You probably, you've interviewed a lot of street guys, right?
Yeah.
I don't speak like one anymore by choice. I educated myself. I read, I learned how to speak, and I somehow got away from that. But I know a few people can say stuff, they have their opinion, that's fine, but it's a shit life. Being in the
It is.
street, a career street life, no matter what level you're at, you know, the bottom or top mafia, you're a street guy who's waiting to go to prison or die. And unfortunately, in that life, you've got to use violence often because it's the only thing certain people understand. So before long, it's just a tornado of shit, and there's no way to not get dirty, ruin the life of your family, the people that trust you. And I woke up one day and I said, that's it. No more. And cigars landed on my lap, and it's something I could deal with it because do you think cigar smuggling is it's not that bad. I sold to federal judges. That's how my reach. I used to go to Michael Jordan's house and sell to Michael Jordan. One of my customers, and we're talking mid 90s, he was a billionaire. So there were not a lot of billionaires in the 90s. That's a whole new thing. And I had this amazing clientele, and I learned a lot about business and life, and I moved on, built my life, and I started writing the book in 2000. But I had other things going on, and I listened to the voices in my head and the whispers. People started giggling and laughing. You're going to write a book? You're not a writer. Well, what is a writer? I'm a storyteller. And boy, do I have stories to tell. When I wrote this one, I sent the other 3 manuscripts to the publisher to say, I want you to just look into this a little bit so you can know who I am, where I come from. And they're going over it. And then they have a conference call with me. They go, wait a minute, Scott, why did you write this book first if you have all these other stories? I said, oh, no, those other stories aren't going to be told. I'm not going to tell those. And then I had a couple conversations with people, and they say, Scott, your story is great. If it can help people, you're not that person anymore. But I had Staxx. I had a fucked up life, and I was feral until certain. I can remember points in my life where it changed. And I was a fighter since I was a kid. I boxed, I kickboxed, I wrestled, and just there's anger inside of people. Did you see Strickland's fight the other night?
Yeah, I made a
Strickland,
bet on it and I won.
you won
Nobody thought Strickland was gonna win.
because most people don't know what they're talking about, and the other thing they ride emotions. So this guy's been on a train, and I told people, I said, Strickland's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Nobody's really dominated him on the ground ever.
I think one time. I think once.
And he's not scared of anything. And with that said, he has the ugliest, plainest fighting style that if you saw him shadow boxing and that's all you knew about him, you would say he's terrible. This guy, he's got nothing. Flat-footed. His kicks are terrible, but he is just one tough, bad motherfucker. That's what it comes down to. With a hard life, I can because I come from where he comes from, and I had friends that had terrible lives. I had a terrible life. It makes you hard, and some people it turns into fighters.